Welcome all. So glad you're here, and welcome, Naomi. I'm so grateful to have you. I think what we'll do is, why don't we start off with, maybe you can just tell us a bit about who you are and the work that you get to do and the people you help.
Sure, that's the new way.
Yeah.
Everybody used to read the bio, and now they're asking me to.
Yeah.
So, Naomi Aldort, I'm the author of Raising Our Children, Raising Ourselves, which is in 20 languages. That's the book. And a next book is coming out spring 26, probably. For parents of babies and toddlers, and I'm working on two more, hoping to get them out before I leave. I'm old, so it's like one can never know for sure what we would get to do. My first book was published in 2006. Before that, I had articles in magazines like Mothering and other international parenting magazines around the world, and public spoke and counseled, initially by phone. It's been many years. Now it's mostly Zoom or Skype. And I have parents come here also, families from actually all over the world, for what I call a family intensive retreat. They come for anywhere from 1 day to 2 to 5 days, sometimes a whole week if they need more help, and work with me one on one. And I do public speaking mostly on Zoom now. I used to travel all over Australia, Europe, America, Canada mostly. And what I teach, just a summary of it so you have an idea, is how to be with your children so they want to do what's best for them and for everybody of their own free will, authentically. Not because they're afraid of the parent, not even because they want to please the parent and impress anybody, but truly and honestly because the child want to succeed, to be part of, to contribute, to do the right thing. So, of course, depends on age. We're not expecting contribution from a 1-year-old, although their own existence is the greatest contribution anybody can have. I have a granddaughter who's
Yeah.
1 year old right now.
Chubby cheeks are a contribution.
Oh, yeah. It's not just the chubby chick, it's the whole thing and the behavior and the way they walk.
Yes.
Anyway, so yes, and people call me all over the world. We do sessions by Zoom, classes, whatever it is. And one of the things that gave me name initially was an article about why not to praise. That was one of my first, taken by Mothering magazine, and then they published it again in a little pamphlet of just best articles or something like that. And that got me invited initially to public speaking 30 some years ago. So this is a long time ago. I have 3 sons. People like to know those things. They're grown-ups, 2 granddaughters. One is owns his own business, actually 2. The other one is musician that freelance on the piano and composition and teaching a bit. And the youngest is second chair at Boston Symphony Orchestra cello. So each one living a rich life, and they never went to school, but it's not something I insist on for my clients. That was a choice we made, and the many other choices that are valid. Is that a good enough introduction?
That's a beautiful introduction. Yeah, thank you. So what I love to, let me just preface it by saying, I think the majority of the people here we're speaking with are in that window in their life where they are maybe at a rock bottom, or they are saying, can't live like this anymore, or, they're in that limbo state that's extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
where they're all the things are coming up. And I know that you've talked about this being devoted to your triggers. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering if maybe you could talk with us a little bit about that.
Well, we're all trapped with this. We have a mind, and the mind records whatever happened to us all the way from childhood, whether there was one big trauma or whether the whole of childhood had I was going to say silver lining, but maybe a other type of wire lining, not one, not silverish, that was painful or confusing or one way or the other. We end up with a certain blueprint, or you can say brain DNA, where the brain kind of jerks around and wants to defend itself. That wouldn't be a problem if we didn't identify with it. So the only problem, and that any spiritual teacher will tell you the same thing, but I work with it in a more pragmatic, psychological way. It's a problem because when we identify with it, we fall apart based on what it says. And we pursue everything from international wars to struggle with our children, spouses, loved ones, in pursuit of defending and preventing the pain that we experienced before. And the good news is that no one has to feel bad about it, because the strategy of behavior that the mind has created, of often resistance, defensiveness, which create problems now, and blame of the other and victimhood. Initially, as a young child, it was the right strategy. There was no other way for an innocent child that had a certain, a dysfunctional or just painful situation with parents or siblings or other family members or whoever it was, or in school. So I often ask a person, what happened? Do you remember something? When we explore the source of the suffering and the triggers. And what they remember shows that the strategy they chose was perfect for the time being. As a child, the fact that they decided, I will close up and just go to the other room and be a good little girl, a good little boy, or I will revenge and act out, etc., and then maybe I'll get a little bit of what I need, or whatever strategy it was, which was a defense, and the only thing a child could do was right then, but not right in the present. And the mind doesn't know that. So we have the trauma or just years of a certain pattern develop and strategy, and then we're still doing it as if the enemy is here, and the enemy isn't here.
Yeah.
So, so that's the summary of that.
Yeah. As you're speaking about this, it's just, being a mother myself, I'm recognizing what beautiful teachers our children are, and what happens when we might believe that the enemy is still here unconsciously, right? It's not like we're moving through life doing that, but we are, right? We don't know it. So can you speak to that a little bit, when maybe we can talk to the parents a little bit, and even if you're not a parent and you are maybe someone's boss or coworker, it still applies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, this is true in any relationship. So my specialty is marriage and children, but it applies anywhere. So, and maybe you have an example, actually, but my examples are mostly with children. But you get a child who comes and doesn't want to go to bed. Okay, so this is an example that happens a lot. If you want to apply it to marriage or something somebody doesn't want. I had a couple where the woman wanted so badly that he would reduce the amount of coffee that he drinks. And then they went to a naturopath, and she came with notes out of the naturopath that she was sure were what the naturopath said about that he has to reduce how much coffee he's drinking. And he had a totally different memory. And then they struggle. And again, so, but let's take the example of this child doesn't want to go to sleep. So in one of such stories is a 6 years old boy, and he's drawing, and his siblings are already in bed, and the father comes and says, it's time to go to bed. You have school tomorrow morning. You need to stop what you're doing. And child doesn't respond at all and just keep drawing. And so the father goes for a minute and tell him, just go do it. He goes be with the girls again and sing them lullabies or whatever he's doing, and comes back, and the boy's still there. So he goes and picks him up physically and puts him in the bathroom and closes the door and say, now get ready and come to bed. Well, 20 minutes later, he's hearing singing from the bathroom, right? And he thinks to himself, oh my God, there he is, not getting ready for bed, singing. And he cracks the door open and finds the boy laying on the floor on his back, singing, indeed, just doing nothing, not getting ready. He got angry again. The thing lasted then for probably an hour and a half delay in bedtime, and a very upset boy by the time he went to sleep. And he asked me, what could I have done better? And what I did with him is the work of Byron Katie. So some of your listeners may be familiar, some not. But so I'll make it very simple. It's like the mind of this man had whatever his triggers, and this is not a trauma-related trigger necessarily, just a more typical trigger of needing to control, or a fatherly worry. He'll be tired in the morning. He'll be tired at school. School wouldn't go well. He won't be healthy because he'll have lack of sleep. Whatever bunch of thoughts that he had, I had him write down all his concerns, and I won't run through the whole what we did with each thought, but he had specific immediate thought about the child. The child should listen to me. The child should get ready for bed. And when he looked at that, he realized he could learn from the inquiry that it is that he's missing, that he's not in touch with his child, that he is so busy being triggered and being inside his own head with his own concern that, like you ask yourself, my child should listen to me. Is that really true? That's question number one in this inquiry. And, how do you know they should listen to you? Whose business is it? Who listens to you? And how do you know he's not listening? Maybe he's listening, but deciding, I'm going to ignore my daddy. This is too important to me. I want to finish my piece of art. So I asked him, he should listen to you. Is that true? And initially he said yes, but then he realized, gee, it isn't true, because reality is truth. In reality, he wasn't actually listening. So what would be more effective, his learning in this process, is when I ask him, so how do you react when you believe the thought that he should listen to you? Well, I yell, I go to war against my son, I'm stressed, we're disconnected. It's hellish. It's what happened, the rest of the story. How would you be without the thought he should listen to you, which he really means he should obey me? I want parents to really get that. They say he should listen to me. He means obey. Because the child, people listen doesn't mean they do it, right? He's still an autonomous person. So anyway, then I ask him question number 3, who would you be without this thought? So that's the meditative part. When you ask yourself, imagine the same scenario. Child is drawing. I tell him, get ready for bed. How would I be without the thought? And I say to him, and he doesn't move. How would I be without the thought he should listen to me? Perhaps I would be more peaceful, more attentive, or what this guy said was, I would notice that he's really busy with the drawing. I wasn't noticing him. I was so inside myself, he said, I didn't even notice. And then when you look at the thought, then the thought isn't really useful or true in terms of what's actually happening. When you start notice what's actually happened, you say, oh, he shouldn't listen to me. He's too absorbed. We say, oh, the child has no focus. Children have amazing focus. They can focus so much that when you interrupt, they tune you out because of such great focus. Oh, maybe he shouldn't listen to me because I'm being disrespectful and I'm not considering what's going on for him. Maybe I should listen, as in pay attention to who the child is and what's happening to him. Now, this story, then we did other thoughts, like he should do, as I said, he shouldn't sing on the bathroom floor. Each thought, when he actually asked himself if it's true, like, for example, he got to the point of laughing about singing on the bathroom floor, because it took an hour and a half after that with a lot of upset. He said to me all of a sudden, oh my God, he was putting himself to sleep, giving himself his own lullaby, calming himself down from the anger about his father interrupting him by doing singing meditation on a floor. And I get upset with him that he's healing himself from my misbehavior. And it's not that, calling misbehavior. I don't mean somebody is bad. He's doing it innocently because he's triggered. But when he worked on these triggers, when he asked the questions, it's like, oh, he should sing on the bathroom floor. He's upset. He needs to calm himself down so he's ready to go to sleep. Who can go to sleep angry? I know I can't.
Yeah.
If I have an intense, even listening to news at bedtime is a killer of sleep, even for adults. So let alone with a 6-year-old child feeling that daddy is displeased with him and angry with him, and his work, his artistic endeavor was interrupted, and he's really angry. So how wonderful that he was singing on the floor. And the father said, gee, I could have just joined him on the floor. And I said, that could have been or not, because it could be patronizing to do that when the child is. Probably the best would have been to quietly close the door and wait patiently with respect. The same respect you expect from your child, you give it. You be the, I should respect him. And that worked terrifically because, anything happens next time, this man was transformed. He was able to see the point of view of the child so much faster and to align with it and validate the feelings, as I speak in my first chapter of my book, because you can have all the skills, you can read my book and say, oh, great skills, but if you're triggered, you can't do it.
Yeah.
Because you're about you and you have all this pain going on or all this anxiety. And, and the man also said at the end, if he was a little late for school the next day or was a little tired, that wouldn't be anything as bad as the fight that we had at bedtime.
Yeah, exactly.
And he went to sleep that much later and upset, so... people say, isn't that taking too much time? And say, no, it actually takes less time to be loving and to be kind and to see the point of view of the child or the spouse or the other person.
Yeah, thank you so much for that offering. I want to share with people listening that I've had a personal experience with Byron Katie's work for many years. And when I first started doing, she was at a conference that I was at, and so I had done a worksheet there. And then the book kind of went on the shelf and I forgot. And then it was probably 6 or 7 years later where I was in a situation where I really had to face the reality that my physical body wasn't going to come to a recovery and healing unless I really focused on healing resentments that I had, long-standing ones. But then it blossomed into, wow, you have little ones all day long that this work. Yeah. And I'll briefly just share, maybe just because it's similar to your situation. I remember driving home from the farmer's market on a bike with my young son, who was probably about 7 or 8 years old. And it was kind of cold, and we were in the fanciest part of the neighborhood. And he just threw his bike onto someone's lawn, ran to the middle of their lawn, and decided to lay on his back in the middle of the kind of snowy weather. And I was like, we got to get back. I got to make dinner. I got this. What are you doing? All the insecurity about being on this person's lawn. They're going to come outside. What are you doing? Like embarrassed, like all the thoughts. I'm embarrassed to even say that I had them, but I did. Mm-hmm. And finally, I couldn't get him to get up. And so I don't know what happened, if it was me, because I was starting to do this work around the time. I don't remember what, but I just went and laid next to him. We went and laid and it was such a beautiful, I started crying. It was such a beautiful moment. Mm-hmm. And what I started to see then, and I still am grateful for the reminder today from you, is how much our thinking, that's what I'm hearing you say. It's about our thinking that blocks us from the beautiful moments that we could be having.
Thank you for that. That's very beautiful. And that's the bottom line. It's our thinking. When we identify with it, we think it's who we are. But once you realize, when you do this kind of inquiry on a regular basis, you change. You actually become a human being who has thoughts, rather than thoughts having you.
Powerful statement there.
Yeah. So, because when we identify with the mind, then the thoughts basically hijack us from the moment. And I think everybody experienced this, where they have some unpleasant conversation, could be with anybody, the banker, the bus driver, or the spouse or a relative. And then we're by ourselves and we know what we should have said. We know, oh God, why didn't I stay peaceful and just connect with them and just validate their feeling or apologize or whatever? Why did I go through all this war? And that's the effect that doing this inquiry has when we do it repeatedly. When I was younger and just learning, actually, my first book was written before I knew of Byron Katie or the work. And I was giving a workshop somewhere, but it has the same principle of teaching you to not take this too seriously, and how you feel, which is as the result of whatever the mind is saying. And somebody in the audience said to me, you sound like you studied Byron Katie. And I said, no, I heard the name vaguely not long before that in another workshop. But at that point, I said, well, I'll check her out because of saying that. Anyway, where was I going? I cut myself. Do you remember where I was going?
Well, I was very present with you, but I can't tell you right now. I can say, though, that it was really about our mind and our thinking, right? That is it. You mentioned how we can let the thoughts take over us, or we can truly think.
And it's, so I was giving the example how you walk away and all of a sudden you know how you could have been a different person, who you really are, and not a slave of your genie in the head.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Yeah. And the genie in the head is often very toddler-like. And I don't want anybody to think that it's an enemy, because it's not. It's a lover. But it's a toddler. and it's just kind of automated and wants to protect itself. And every time we peel the power that it has over us and realize what the toddler really wants and what's going on in there, we become simply more free. Because the power, if you want to be a victim, then you love your stories of blaming someone else, somebody. It's never the other person. It's always, how do I react to it? And yeah, reacting to it may mean leaving a certain situation. It's not that everybody is the right person to live with or to be with or to work for or whatever it is. But you do it without war.
Yeah.
Just because you are responsible to yourself, and you say, okay, I can see that with this person I'm suffering, and this is what's coming up for me. And either you stop being triggered and this person all of a sudden is awesome because you're not triggered and you can connect, or this person is an alcoholic or has issues that we can never work on it together. And you say, I love you, and I'm packing and finding a different life because this doesn't work. So this does not mean at all being a doormat or agreeing to everything. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
Really powerful, because you never lose. See, being triggered is losing your spine. That's when you're lost.
Yeah.
You're not you. You are a servant of this narrative, this story. And when you're without that story, when you question it and become free of it, it doesn't mean that you give up anything. You can still insist on whatever it is you're insisting, or you may discover, I guess I don't need it. Like this morning, a man was telling me that he was going for a visit to his 19 years old student daughter in her college. And he was upset that she didn't vacate enough time for them to be together, that her schedule is pretty full. And like, he wants to feel important. He wants her to take his visit seriously. By the end of the conversation, the guy was clear. Oh my God, she's 19 years old. Daddy coming to visit can be a pain in the butt, or it can be pleasant. But my schedule is full. Find time when I have the time. Have lunch with me in the evening. In the weekend, we'll hang out some of the time. And he was so relieved. It's like, oh my God, my visit with my daughter will be now so much better because I'm not mad at her for, she changed some plans and became busier because of some classes she wants to take. It's like, oh my goodness, don't you want for your daughter to take the classes she's interested in? And he says, yes, yes. But, he was caught by the mind. He was triggered. And when you're triggered, you can't care for the other person. And one of my tricks that I teach, just as a portal, as a way to get yourself present when you need to do it quickly and you can't do inquiry and write your thoughts down and everything, I say just shift your attention to them, whether it's a spouse, a college student, a son or daughter, or a child, or a boss. Just think, what are they feeling right now? Just focus on them, because we're too self-focused. And the mind just loves self-focus. Am I being insulted? Am I being wronged? Am I being misunderstood? Is he rude to me? Me, and it's like, what about, be the listener, just like the father with the child. Oh,
yeah,
he saw in the start, oh my goodness, he doesn't even hear me. He is so absorbed in his art, it probably won't take that long for a 6 years old to finish a picture. You just, because he asked me, by the way, that father, so what could I have said at the very start? And, and I asked him if he has an idea. And I think what we came up with, I see that you're very busy with your art. Your sisters are already in bed. As soon as you're done with your picture, let me know if you need help in the bathroom to get ready. I more or less what he and I together came up with. So kind, so simple, would have taken no time. He probably would have drawn for a few more minutes. And when children feel ownership, and adults too, they're much more likely to cooperate, to do the right thing. Like I remember with my own child, my youngest one was like 3 years old or 2.5, and his bigger brothers were much older. So we were in the playground and he was sliding and really nuts about sliding. And his older brothers wanted to go home because they wanted to play chess and dinner or whatever they were into, they had enough. So, normally a parent would say to the child, okay, your brothers want to go, we have to go now. Come on, 1, 2, 3, or, one more slide. That makes the child feel a loss of autonomy. You're doing it because you want, you control, and then the child doesn't do it right away. You get upset, you grab him by force, he screams, and you get the more normal scene, right? But if you give them autonomy, so what I said to him is, your brothers want to go home. I see that you still want to slide. How many more times do you need to slide before we go home? We'll wait for you. And he said 10 times. And after 5 times, he said, I had enough. Let's go. And the reason he had enough is autonomy. He was in charge and he was sliding, but kind of getting bored with it because of knowing, okay, it's so many, I'm counting, I'll play with my brothers too, and I'm hungry, whatever his mindset was. But when I told this story to another client and she tried it, she said, her daughter said 100. And she said, is that a problem? I said, no, just have patience. First of all, they're not going to do 100. Because you give them autonomy, they come to an end in a more logical way. But even if she goes for more times, just make peace with that, so the older children learn to wait. Or you learn to wait. In this case, I don't think there were other children. She wanted to go home to make dinner. Husband comes home, etc., etc. I said, okay, so it'll be a little later. You wait. But you give the autonomy. And I told her the reason your daughter said 100 tells me that she has over the years felt more disabled in terms of autonomy, in terms of free will. So she's like, you give her the first time you give her the autonomy, she wants to take the world and bite the whole cake, but after a few bites, she'll be full. And it just gives you feedback. You learn, this child is really anxious about this. Just like when I teach parents to do power games with children and let them kind of go against, it's a whole chapter in the book, so I won't go into it now because we're almost out of time. But I tell them the first time you play a game with the child where he feels like you gave him a playful conditions to feel powerful, they're going to go for 2 hours. They've never had it before. They don't think they'll never, ever have it again. So they just like, oh my God, I can actually do what I want. And they're going to go and go and go, and you're going to be exhausted. Yes, you'll sleep well that night. That's fine. So the first week or two, they'll go for very long. So they start the game very early before bedtime or whatever the situation is. And after 2 weeks, generally, those games are down to 20 minutes on a regular basis for most parent-child relationship.
Yeah.
So don't despair if you imitate this idea with your child or with your husband or whoever, and they tell you, I need more hours to finish reading my newspaper or whatever. And
this is so beautiful. I want to ask you and share for all the listeners today. I can't say it's the one thing because that's not true, but one big thing that I have received from doing Byron Katie's work, but not just that, but just what you're speaking of learning this kind of dance, is I had to face the victim in me that didn't even know that I would have told you before, I'm not a victim, right? But I also had all these problems with a lot of things. And I did more worksheets on my ex-husband, I don't think he'll ever watch this, and my mother, right? And what parallels those two. And I had given away all of my power. I'd given it all away with how I was thinking about this situation or these situations. So I guess I just wanted to ask you a little bit about that, because I know that this is a big part of relationship, and we don't want to admit that we are, like, who wants to say we're a victim? But yeah.
Yeah, in my workshops, I do something I learned from the psychologist Virginia Satir. She has a book, and I took a workshop with her in my youth, long, long ago, but she has a book, People Making. And she stages the feeling and the situations in the family. So in terms of the victim, when somebody tells me in a workshop a victim story, because you can do it with your mind, I have volunteers from the audience come and play the different roles this person is describing and exaggerate the words to demonstrate the position each one takes. And it's really amazing what it does, just becoming conscious of it. So the one who plays victim end up with, oh no, poor me. Oh, please do what I want, or I suffer so much. And the one playing the partner or parent or whatever says, yeah, whatever they say, in some bullyish kind of way. And they play the story that the client told or the participants in the workshop told. So, and just to add to that, so awareness is step one, and doing the work of Byron Katie definitely illuminates anybody, because when they say, yes, it's true, this person did something bad to me, and then you ask the next question, how do you feel, or how do you react when you believe it's true? You discover the victim. I feel hopeless, helpless, dependent. When you find those things, it's stressful and it's victim. The difficulty today, in today's world especially, is that being a victim has become a virtue. Politically, group mentality, individual, everybody, if you're the victim, everybody's on your side, whether it's in big groups or individual. And
you're celebrated.
Yes, you're celebrated. You're the victim. Yes. And, so I don't tell anybody not to be a victim if that's what they want to be, but you get to be happy or you get to be wrong and victim. And it's so the resilience that comes from giving up the victim pose, if I can call it this way, it's not a virtue, and it hurts. It hurts like hell. In fact, blaming another person for your feeling, he makes me feel, she makes me feel, it hurts nobody but the blamer. There is no power in it. When you take responsibility, it doesn't mean the other person didn't do a wrong thing. It's not, people are afraid, oh, he won't know that he was bad or she was mean, or that's not your business anyway, what they're learning. You take care of yourself. When people, if the world was full of people, each one doing themselves, taking care of themselves, we'll have peace. That's peace on earth, is you do you. Because, Byron Katie says this beautiful sentence I can't have enough of. No two people ever met.
Wow, yeah. We barely know ourselves.
Yeah, but never mind. We have a story about what the other person says. They don't know that they said that. I mean, they may know the words, but what they intended, what was the tone, we are a perception machine. And until we're willing to be responsible to our own responses and not react, but respond, there can't be peace. Because when you take care of yourself, like this father this morning that I talked to that's going to visit his daughter at the college, he took responsibility to do the work before going there. to do the inquiry and straighten himself, so that now when he goes to be with her, there is no blame, there is no upset, there is no, she should have planned more free time to be with me. It's like now he's going there, adoring that she's so busy, happy about it, and ready to support her. Can I do something for you so that you can go through your busy day faster? Or one of the things that he mentioned he can do. So it's just such a relief. So anytime you find yourself suffering, generally it's you're being victim.
Yeah.
And we all find ourselves. I've done it. I still do it. And when I catch myself, or one of my sons wakes me up from it, as now that I'm well trained with the work, it goes out the window very fast. So the more you inquire into your mind, rather than believe everything it says and become its victim, you know, believing every thought, the more you question that and wonder what is really, how can you take care of you in the face of however the other person is. And last thing I want to say that can be helpful is use the weather as an analogy. You don't blame the rain, you take an umbrella. You don't blame the tsunami even. You climb up you take your kids, your loved ones, whatever, you climb up the hill. You don't blame the sun for burning you. You know what to do, wear a hat, whatever. I don't believe in sunscreens, but it's not healthy. But whatever you do to moderate the amount of sun and the hours that you get, you respond to reality. Human beings are the same. When a human being is exploding, it's the volcano. What do you need to do? With human beings, unlike the volcano where you should just go away, a human being who is erupting may need love, may need support, may need a listener who doesn't say anything, but just listen and says at the end, is there anything else you need to say?
And it's hard to do that if we're not taking care of ourselves.
Well, if we have to stay rooted in ourselves, and all of parenting, unfortunately, is the way we do parenting in the mainstream is we constantly actually extract the child from being rooted in themselves. We think we know what's best for them, and they're telling us, reading their own blueprint, their own innate being, what they need, and we discard it. I'll give you a little example. I know we're running out of time, but it's
plenty of time. We're great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, parents ask about babies and little children and young children. Shouldn't he sleep by himself? Because today there's more and more parents who respond to the baby and sleep with them, which is wonderful. It's what I did too. But when they're worried about it, when they're not the kind of parent who would sleep by the time the child is a little older, they get worried. What will grandma say? But one of the main things they ask is, wouldn't he not become independent if he sleeps with us and doesn't sleep by himself? And we do an inquiry to discover that being alone has nothing to do with independence. Independence is the child choosing where to sleep. That's independent choice. Because his inner body and feeling tells him, I'm afraid by myself. I want to be next to mommy and daddy, just like mommy and daddy like to be with each other. How come we think that the little child could sleep by themselves? It's like very strange, right? But whatever, that's our mind did that to us because we learned from generation to generation to isolate children. But it's an example where we have a thought he will never be independent. And if we inquire into that, we realize that he'll be more independent if he sleeps with you, because that's his independent choice. That's what I call being rooted in himself. So the child chooses where to sleep. That's being rooted in himself. And no, he's not going to sleep there as a teenager, I promise. And like in one of the workshops years ago, it's on CD set, Trusting Our Children, Trusting Ourselves. A woman or a man, I don't remember, got up to ask at the end of me talking about this subject, said, so when will the child get out of the family bed if I never ask him to leave the family bed? And humorously, another mother, before I managed to answer, said, when he has a girlfriend. And it doesn't go usually that far, but it's just that it gives the jolt to the mind. Like, what were you thinking?
Yeah, as a mother of a 15-year-old boy right now, I can assure people, you'll know it'll be like overnight.
Yeah, they don't want you to. Talking about overnight, when my middle son became 13, he did this thing overnight. Until then, this boy had his food has to be made exactly a certain way. Cut the bread this way, do it this way, that way. We still ate bread at those days, but anyway. And I always had to make his food for him because that's what he wanted, and I did. I believe in he would help and do things in other ways. 13 years old birthday. The next day, I'm starting to make him his lunch, and he looks at me indignantly. Mom, what are you doing? It's like, I'm making the lunch that you usually have recently. And he said, Mom, I'm 13. I make my own food. It's like his birthday was the night before. I mean, it's just like, okay. And you put you in your place, and it's everything like that with children. So anyway, no, they're not going to sleep with you even close to 15. That's just unfounded anxiety. And if they did, it probably wouldn't be a problem. They're probably slow developer. But usually the hormones kick in, and the last thing they need in their bed is mommy or daddy. They have other things to think about, or to talk to their friends, or to imagine or fantasize or whatever. They need to be by themselves, and they want it.
Yeah.
So no worry, it's not going to get even close to that. So again, example of thoughts get in the way. The power of loving what is unbelievable. It's just whatever comes your way, that's what to love now. Krishnamurti, the spiritual teacher from England, India, in front of a big audience, one day he asked the audience, would you like to know what keeps me happy all the time? Silence, of course. He says, I don't mind what happens. And, it's like the father this morning saying, oh, why did she change her plans? There was more time on that day, It's like, well, that's what's next.
Yeah.
That's what happens now. You broke your leg. Good. You have experience of broken leg. But
loving what happens.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here now?
Yeah. It's like when it's unchangeable, it's already here. Saying to your wife, you shouldn't speak this way. That's another thing that happens between couples that's just so destructive to relationship. And, again, the intention is, I'll teach him to talk in a way that I can listen to better, and then we will have it better. Why don't you work on yourself to have him be the way he is, or her, and what can you do in that moment to connect, to understand?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you actually have to follow the instructions. And people ask me about relatives. They say, oh, my relatives are telling me not to homeschool my kid, or not to sleep with them, or not to give them organic food only and let them have sugar, etc. Say, listen to them. There's no threat. See, when people are victims and scared and threatened and triggered, then no one around them can talk because they're afraid of their words.
Yeah.
So I do in workshops a mock, like Katie does sometimes too, where I tell, often parents tell me about the grandparents and how they oppose their parenting way. I say, that's fine. You be the grandparent, nastiest you can be. I'll be you, a loving, peaceful you. It's amazing. And I have it, by the way, I have on my website for sale a couple of recordings of workshops with video. One of them includes this kind of work. It's actually very funny. Those things are very funny.
Okay. We'll make sure we have all those links so people can.
Yeah, the woman did a phenomenal work of being her, I think, mother-in-law, or I don't know exactly, fighting against whatever. I don't remember the subject, but it's amazing once you are peaceful and you receive it and you say, oh, I hear you. So you're feeling this way and that way. I understand. And when you were a mother, that's the way you did it. And I can see the conviction that that is the way, and this must be very difficult for you, and stuff like that. And then the connection and the laughter, there's no struggle. There's only love. It's a total return to love.
And as you're saying this, it's reminding me too, to share with others that I've done this work, and still do, by the way, every day, just so we're clear. I've done this work with people that I don't necessarily see or talk to all the time. And when we shifted in here and in here, energetically, that person, they show up different. They respond differently. Yeah. It's miraculous.
we think the other person changed.
Yeah. But we did.
But we changed. The world can stay as it is, and you can choose and be free and be peaceful and powerful. And that's true power, because when we talk about emotional resilience, also in how we raise children, it's definitely the avoidance of victimhood and the ownership and being rooted in oneself. And the whole world is your imagination anyway, because no two people ever met, because every person perceives what they perceive. So enjoy it. It's the best movie ever.
Yeah.
And just be in it and celebrate it and do whatever keeps it the most enjoyable and peaceful. If you love war, then enjoy your war. But most people, when they come to me, they want to stop the war in their relationships and inside of them. And you start inside. You stop the war in here, and there won't be war anywhere.
Amen to that. What a gift. What a gift you are, and your work is, and this generous sharing today.
Well, thank you. Certainly isn't me.
Yeah.
We don't even choose who we are. The other big problem with the suffering of blaming anyone, the person we blame, that's the beauty of forgiveness, is there's nothing to forgive, because the other person, they didn't make them. You didn't make you. I didn't make me. So whoever you are and how you grew up and all the psychology and why you react a certain way and why you triggered a certain way, it's not something you can be blamed for. You didn't make it there. That's not a cop-out. It doesn't mean you don't take responsibility for yourself, but it helps you forgive the other, because they don't know what they're doing to some degree, just like we sometimes don't know what we're doing. We walk here and this world is presenting all these things. How much of what comes our way we handle perfectly?
Yeah.
We're humans. Not much. We try, we do, but blaming the other person hurts. Forgiving the other person, by realizing there isn't anything to forgive, they did the best they could, because everybody does. They do the best they could. And finding out, what is it that you needed that you acted this way? how can we resolve it? So now you create connections. It's really magical, you
It
know.
is.
What we are able to do as humans is just amazing. It's just amazing. Beautiful human beings are a miracle.
Yeah,
And
I'm with you.
yeah, and when they're not, they're believing stories.
Yeah,
And are stuck in a bad story playing itself and dictating behaviors, actions, and choices that are hurtful to themselves and others.
yeah, yeah. It's a good time to be alive.
Yes.
Yeah. It's funny, actually, as I said that out loud, I'll just wrap up and say this. I had a client this morning tell me she saw people posting those words on social media, and it really is bothering her because she doesn't feel like it's a good time to be alive. And so, right, just recognizing how this work that you've spoke of, it's such a beautiful playground to use it in this current world. That's why it's a good time to be alive, because we have access to so much.
Yeah. And at the same time, you can say each and every time was a great time to be alive.
Yeah.
In different ways. We always have to deal with humans and the human mind. And now we have, I love that we have so much access to so many tools to be able to wake ourselves up and keep ourselves and keep returning to love, because life is so easy and amazing when you just keep returning yourself to that being loving. In my book, there is a chapter on love, and I speak about, because parents sometimes talk about being consistent with punishments and consequences and all this stuff that I teach to never do. I say be consistent with one thing, be consistent with love. And when you're consistent with love, and as a tool, question your own thoughts that are not loving, consistent with peace and not with thoughts that are stressful, then there is nothing that cannot be resolved with connection, embrace, and gratitude. Because everything is done. It's everything is love. That's what it is. It's amazing. It's grace. Yeah.
Thank you, Naomi. So I believe you have a free bee gift, or maybe direct people to your website where they can find it. We'll post it below, but you want to share a little bit?
I don't remember whether I chose something specific or just gave a link.
It might be, well, obviously we'll put it below. So
it's either the link to the set of 3 articles about why not to praise, or it's a link to the whole website. It's full of free stuff. So I'm not sure which
Go
one.
to the playground of Naomi.
I do a lot of interviews, and I apologize, but I don't remember.
That's okay. That's okay.
It's possible it was the praise article, but it's possible that it has videos, interviews, lots of free stuff, and lots of stuff that doesn't cost much, MP3s, some videos, a little more expensive, the access to full workshops. There are 2 of those. And the book, don't forget the book.
Yeah, I'll be getting that book myself.
That's all ages, because it teaches principles of love and connection. And it does not have the Work of Byron Katie in it. It has the self formula, and the S is where I do the work as part of the formula of how to deal with yourself. And it's raising our children, raising ourselves. So you raise yourself and your children will do great. And your spouses too, and all relationships. All we have to do is keep creating freedom in here and peace.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll see you next time.